Hello and welcome to Janette TV. I'm your host, Janette Burke. We are live on location in Thornhill at the Studio Hair Salon, and tonight I bring you a very special episode. My guest, I've been after her for months to be on my show, and finally tonight it happened. Now you might know her because she is a celebrated Canadian author with 10 books, 10 published books. She's also a columnist, and she is a savvy mom blogger. Welcome, Rebecca Eckler, to Janette TV.
Thank you for having me. I've been watching you.
Thank you, and I'm glad you're here. So as I mentioned, you have written several books, 10 in total, and the theme of your book is mostly about motherhood. Now, there's been a very interesting bunch of books about different aspects of motherhood, from pregnancy right on through to the blended family. I love some of the titles. I'm just going to name some of them off. So the first book, Knocked Up, we'll get back to that. Confessions of a Hip Mother-to-Be. How to Raise a Boyfriend. That's a great title. Got to get that book. The Mommy Mob. Oh, that sounds interesting too. Wiped. Life with a Pint-Sized Dictator. That was about your son, right?
No, that was about my
daughter.
Yeah, she was a pint-sized dictator, that's for sure.
Okay. And most recently, your new book is called Blissfully Blended Bullshit, and I have it right here in my hand. So, first of all, what prompted you to write all these books about different aspects of a woman's journey?
You know what, it's so interesting just like hearing you say it, because Blissfully Blended is my 10th book and Knocked Up was my first book. So my daughter's now 16 years old. So people like have followed my life pretty much, because mostly I write memoirs, which I started with Knocked Up. And quite frankly, I was a columnist at the National Post at that time, and an agent from a publishing house actually came to me. And at that point I had told no one I was pregnant. I was feeling miserable. I was like at 2 months. I was, nauseous. She's like, let's meet for lunch. And all she said to me is, she's like, what are you interested in writing? And she was actually, I think, the first person I told. I said, I'm interested in writing about being pregnant, like the truth about being pregnant. And she was like, sold. Like that was it. I was very, very lucky. That being said, my writing style is very conversational. It's very different than, just a columnist writing about, the science behind something. I like to get down to like the relationship part of everything, and into the, share what women really think, and be kind of like, I'm a truth teller. That's what I think of myself as. Like, I tell the truth.
I think that, women need somebody like you who can tell it like it is, and that they would feel that they have a place to go to, and maybe somebody who understands where they're at the time that they're there.
100%.
And maybe
100%.
There's not an awful lot of out there like that. So you're kind of like an avant-garde.
Yes.
And
sometimes I like to say I'm too candid. That's what I like to say. I'm too candid. It gets me into trouble sometimes.
But it also gets you a nice following, right? So
yes.
Let's talk a little bit more. So I know Knocked Up, and I know we're not going to get into the legalities of it, but Knocked Up was your first book. You were pregnant at the time, and it wound up becoming a movie from Universal. And I don't know if there's some similarities or not, but would you like to talk to our audience about this? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that the story or the movie Knocked Up was actually somewhat of your own story, or is your own story.
Well, it was very interesting, because what people thought was, I have written about it. I wrote a large story about it for Maclean's magazine, and what people thought was, oh, the movie came out with the same title. She's suing because it made $100 million opening weekend. And the truth of the matter is, I actually had started that lawsuit about a year before, once I found out that there was a movie of the same name. And I had some friends in LA who worked kind of like in the mail room, who shot me over the script. And that's when I was like, my heart sank, because I believe that someone had seen it, and And yeah, so I sued them. And
you should have. And that was really courageous of you. I don't know that everyone would do that, but it's obviously your own story. So.
I mean, yeah, I'm a Canadian writer going up against Universal Studios and Judd Apatow. Like, come on, really? But yeah, I mean, I feel if there's an injustice, then you have to fight for it. 100%.
And you're also speaking up for yourself in the time of a Me Too movement where we're just learning to do that for ourselves.
And it's unfortunate because, you know what? It's not unheard of for people to steal ideas or steal whatever, but a lot of people just don't have the money to hire a lawyer in the first place. And the outpouring of people, I just remember saying, this person is exactly the same. And unless you can afford a lawyer to play with the big boys, then...
But you had a valid point and a case, and it's been settled, so obviously it was worth it, and you had a right to stand up for yourself. And I think we should also note that your books have really gone and span like an array of topics for women, from pregnancy to being a single mother, yes, to having 2 children. You mentioned your daughter Roan, who's 16, who's been you've been having her in the spotlight with you since she was quite young, since she was actually born, I guess, and your son Holt. And there's a lot of women going through similar situations that are trying to have families and also pursue their dreams. So I would like to ask you, how do you see that, or do you have any advice for how you can see that coming together? Like, first of all, you really do march to the beat of your own drum, right?
I do. I mean, let's be honest. Like, we're in a Jewish community, right, at Thornhill. There's not too many mothers who have 2 children from 2 different fathers who have never technically been married. Like, let's just lay that out, right?
I'm glad that you are, because I wanted to get into that.
But in large scheme of things, you would not believe, recently I just wrote a story called I Suck at Relationships. Plain and simple. There was so much response from people who were on their 2nd and 3rd marriages, who were cheering me on, saying it's okay that you have 2 divorces, and 2 different kids from 2 different dads. That stigma, I think, has diminished.
But do
you
have 2 divorces? I thought you were never married.
Well, I mean, you consider, I did live with each of them for more than 3 years, so under the law, you become technically common law. So you are under the law of
now,
just
can
like
I
being
just
married.
ask you, are you against marriage, or is it just something that you felt like, I'll just keep my identity and I'll keep my independence, and I'll have my kids and my career, and I don't need to be like a married woman?
Yeah, you know what? I am a hopeless romantic. I kind of like the engagement phase, and sometimes I think let's you get engaged, let's take a beat, let's enjoy the honeymoon phase before the planning. The other thing is quite frankly, I am inherently lazy when it comes to planning things. I'm not interested in napkins. I love going to weddings. I love hearing the speeches, but so I just kind of let it slide.
But as a savvy mommy and a savvy entrepreneur, what advice do you have for other women? Because today we are getting married and divorced a lot, and there's often a lot of financial ruin because of that. And now you're a woman who's standing out there almost like a that girl of your time, saying, I can do this on my own and I can do it independently. And is there advice that you have for other women who might be worried that pursuing their dreams and having a family and getting married multiple times may be costing them the fortune that they built?
Well, in my case, with the second one, I will admit that, when we blended families, he moved into my house, and I had a fully furnished house. When we broke up and he left, a lot. I mean, I had an empty living room for a good month or 2. But in this case, my lawyer said to me, what's the goal? Do you want him out of the house quick? And I said, yes. And she said, well, the way to get him out quick is give him whatever he wants. If he wants the TV, give him the TV. If he wants the couch, give him the couch, because it's just stuff. And she was right. It is just stuff. Did I take a financial hit on it? Yes, I did. But was it worth it? Because we had our family had so imploded to the point where I was, almost paralyzed and couldn't get out of bed. Yeah, it was worth it to give away the TV, the couches, the carpet, whatever. down to the shower caddy, quite frankly. So
Okay.
yeah,
So speaking of the blended families, right? Because a lot of people are going through this. What do you see as like the best part of being a blended family and the worst part of it that people should look out for, or that women should look out for?
Well, definitely if you're a woman entering a blended family, I mean, I can only speak from a kind of a woman's point of view, because that's, but you need to have the biggest heart. You need to be so selfless, and you need to really ask yourself, are you prepared for kids who may not like you, for a husband who is not going to necessarily put you first ever because his kids will always come before you. For all these things, are you willing to shell out your own money for someone else's kids? And then we brought another kid into the family too. So I had a daughter, he had 2 daughters,
and then we
had a son together. So it affected everyone in the family, and that's why I wanted to write this book, because I'm not interested in stepmother-stepchildren relationship. Okay, anyone with half a mind could figure that one out, but I was so surprised about just all the variations of people who had to get along. Like as of now, I will tell you this, I mean straight up, I'm being honest with you, as of now, so I have my son 50% of the time, he's with his dad 50% of the time, but he has 3 sisters, one who is my daughter, and 2 who from his father's side. I don't ever see those, my ex's children, and my daughter has no relationship with my ex's other 2 children. So there's these 2 girls out there who are related to my son who I never see.
Okay, so does that affect you, or does that affect your kids? Do they feel like, hey, I used to have more siblings, or aside from your son, like,
Well, actually, it was very interesting. My son, people are always worried, how divorce is going to impact the children, and that's probably why they, most of the reason they stay together, but which is, I don't believe in that, but my son was not affected at all by the divorce, because he had grown up seeing one sister go off with her dad and seeing the 2 other sisters going off with his mother. To him, it was perfectly normal, which is kind of a sad state when you think about it, right?
But maybe not for today's world.
Maybe not for today's world, exactly, yes.
And so what is the most important or main message you want people to know about when you wrote this book?
Well, first of all, I wrote it. I had to write it as if no one in my blended family, that included the grandparents, the nieces, the nephew, anyone who came into the life, the ex, my daughter's father, even my daughter, I had to write it as if no one was going to read it, to be completely candid about what people have to face if they're blending, thinking about blending as they blend and after they blend. Because there was nothing out there about what happened after you blend. Because for me, it only became worse after we blended, not better. Excuse me, I'm just going to wipe my nose because.
Do you need tissue?
Yeah, so it got worse for me, and there was nothing out there about what happens after you blend, and all these BS arguments pop up that you're not prepared for, and all the feelings that you're not prepared for, and how, I never really felt like a priority. And there was a lot of tattletaling going on. Basically, I would say to people, discuss every potential outcome. Are you okay disciplining someone else's children? How are you going to split the bills in the house? Who's going to pay, for your bio kids tickets if you will go on vacation? Like, why?
Yeah, I think that these are things we don't think of because we get caught up in the fairy tale aspect.
Right. And I had definitely love goggles on. And also, back to your point about women, what's unfortunate is, like, I wrote Knocked Up, I got pregnant at the exact same time when my career was at the high, right around 30, right? And many women, that's when they hit their, they really get their groove on, right? And so Knocked Up was totally honest too. I mean, the things I was worrying about, like, is this going to ruin my career now that I'm pregnant? Because another columnist could just come along and scoop up my job, and I had worked so hard too.
Right. And also, it's very hard to make it in the media and crawl up the ladder. I know that, you know that, and I can see that as a valid concern.
Yeah, and and those were the things that you didn't ever read, that no one ever shared, those like feelings of and worries, and you're beautiful, and stay fabulous.
Thank you. So are you.
And but my daughter was also an accident too, right? She was not a planned baby, so suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant, and within, I think, literally 2 weeks, I had gained like 10 pounds.
Do you worry that when she hears that, she may take it offensively?
That she's an accident?
Yes.
No. I'm imagining more than 50% of kids out there are accidents, quite frankly. Not accidents, but
okay.
I don't mean accidents, but we were drunk. That's what I
Yeah, it was your engagement party the night that she was
That's
conceived.
right, yes.
Right? So, but she does have a good relationship with her dad, right?
Yeah, she really does. Actually, it's gotten better, I think.
And she travels with him, and
Yeah.
I followed your posts on Facebook. I even see that she went out with her grandparents.
Yeah, like I said, I call it one good divorce and one bad divorce, which is a pretty sad way of describing divorce. But yeah, for my daughter's birthday, every year, my parents, me, my ex, her father, and her grandparents from the other side, we all go for dinner.
Okay, so I want to ask you a couple other things. Do you find other women critical of you and judgmental of you because you've lived a very different sort of lifestyle that may, do you find that you get judged, criticized? Or do they accept you and support you?
No, absolutely. Like, I mean, not, I have to say, my followers are so wonderful. Like, honestly, I have become friends with a few of them,
yeah.
and they're wonderful. It's more people in the industry who you think that should be supporting you that actually don't. And that bothers me a lot.
Right.
When I was starting out, it was never the older woman columnists helping me out. They were actually poking fun of me.
Yeah, and
so
actually,
I learned to have,
were they judgmental of you? Like, I know sometimes I read somewhere that that your writings were perceived as coming from a place of privilege, and that there was some judgment on you because you decided to leave your 10-month-old baby to go meet a boyfriend on tour in
Well, no,
in
it was his father, and yes, I did leave my 10-week-old baby to go to Mexico.
So how do you feel about it when people come up with these claims? Like, do you feel judged, or do you feel that you just want to live your own life and make your own choices and decisions, and
it's quite clear that I don't bow down to what other people think, because why do I care what other people think? It's my kids, it's my family, I'll raise them the way I want them, and you raise your kids the way you want it. But I find now it's kind of, of course people judge. People judge everything, but...
What about your own mother? Was she supportive of you and your choices? Because a lot of times, women don't have the support of their mother, and they're going through all of this stuff, raising kids, going through divorces, whatever, and they're being told, just stay in that relationship.
Well, I gotta say, I think my parents knew from an early age. I kind of beat to my own drum. That being said, I mean, they were my choices, and I'm
You're an adult.
I'm an adult, and
you can do what you want.
I felt like I can do whatever I want. But that being said, again, I don't want to make a sweeping generalization, but as even my grandfather, who was in his 90s, when I became pregnant, talk about judgmental, it was on the front page of the National Post. More than 200 people canceled their subscription because I wasn't married. I was pregnant, but I wasn't married. So that was actually just 16 years ago.
And that was 16 years ago, but now it's much more accepted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one's telling a woman that they have to be married first. In fact, they're saying,
no, they shouldn't say so.
Why waste the money on a wedding?
I just want to sort of touch on a couple other things, which is, you are a trendsetter. You are definitely a feminist, but do you see yourself as a role model for other women who are trying to raise kids and pursue their dreams the same way that you did it?
Do I see myself as a role model?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say role model. I would say more like treat me like a friend, because I am writing to you as if you were my friend.
But you might be the only person that they can go to.
That's right.
We totally understand them.
And you know what? Sometimes it's not always that great. Sometimes I do get, these private messages from women who are really, really upset, and I have to get in touch with them because I don't want that on my hands. If if they're very depressed about something, I should have really been a therapist, to tell you the truth.
So, but I understand, and tell me if this is correct or not. I believe I saw a post about it that you are thinking, or you are going to give up Savvy Mom. Is that true?
Yes, I actually came to the conclusion that it was just not making me happy anymore. It just wasn't. I had been I wrote about.
But you won 2 awards and everything, so you're going to give it up.
I won lots of awards. I'm still nominated for one that's coming out in January.
Oh, congratulations.
Again. So I just felt, after 3 years of writing about parenting every single week, that
it's time for something else.
It's not even sometime. I've been working since I was 17 years old. I am now 46. So I feel like I need a break, honestly. And I think a lot of people, and it takes to quit a job without actually having anything, but to have that mental,
So what are you going to do next?
Well, I'm thinking, I thought I'd stop at book 10, but it seems that one is brewing in me. I write a column for the National Post called Mom 420, which is about
I want to talk about that, because you've been putting out
Cannabis.
You've been putting out some really good stuff. I've been reading some of this stuff because you posted on Facebook, and I looked and I followed the link to the article. So let's talk about mummies and cannabis. Okay, you're very open about the cannabis use. A lot of people are now using cannabis for various reasons, and the medical side of it and the non-medical side of it. How do you think using cannabis can make a mother somewhat of a better mother, or more relaxed mother?
Well, I think you said it exactly. It makes you a more relaxed mother. Like, I'm not running in, I remember with my daughters, watching certain TV shows, and I just wanted to bang my head on the wall. They were so annoying. Same shows, now that cannabis is legalized, I watch with my son. Not so boring. Lining up cars for hours, toy cars for hours with my son when I'm microdose. Not so boring. Going to a kids movie. Not so boring.
So these pills, right? You take. You've been talking about these cannabis pills, right?
Yes. So
is that prescriptive?
No, you can go on the government website and you just click, and in 5 days it's at your house. Yeah. And it's all legal. That's the other thing. But I do say to my, it's legal, but it's not legal for people who are underage.
Right. So your kids, they're aware that you're doing this. So are you concerned that, they're going to do the same, or they're going to get hold of it? How would you advise another mother to handle this situation?
Well, I mean, these days you have to have constant talks with your children. It's not like a sit down, here's the drug talk. It's been, 3-4 years in the making of talking about, cannabis and drinking and partying and what could happen if you drink this much, and what you should do if you want to get out of a situation that you're not comfortable in. So we have those conversations, not just, on a sit down every Monday at 7 o'clock. It's if it comes up in the news, if we hear a story, if someone on Instagram is posting, I'm about to go buy weed from my brother, we talk about that stuff.
Okay. Well, that's good that you have such a good open relationship with your kids that you can talk about all this stuff. But one of the other posts I saw the other day that you put out had something to do with the Jewish guilt of the Jewish mother.
Oh, for the Canadian Jewish News, yes.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think there's the positive and the negative aspect to that Jewish guilt. What do you think? Can you harm your kids with the Jewish guilt?
I think so. I honestly do think so. Me and my daughter are very close because I raised her. I was a single mother to her, and she lived with me 95% of the time for many years. So we are very close. Sometimes I think maybe we're a little too close.
But is it what's the harm in the guilt? Because you wrote about this.
So I pulled my first guilt trip on her, and she's 16, and as the words are pouring out of my mouth, I'm like, who are you? What are you saying? This sounds so horrible. She does not deserve this. You're just in a bad mood. You're just mad at her for being, quote, a typical teenager. And I felt so I gave her a guilt trip, and then I felt incredibly guilty after. And I'm still feeling like, I cannot believe I did that. And the interesting thing is, I asked my mom, who always pulls guilt trips, okay?
Yeah, so does mine.
Always. And, she'll say something like, would you like to come over Sunday? I'm going shopping today. I need to know. It's just like that pressure or guilt trip that you need to tell them right away. So I felt terrible. So honestly, it was one of the worst feelings I've ever felt. And I don't think I will give her another guilt trip, unless it's joking. I'm lying in bed, she's downstairs, I'll text her, I gave you birth, bring me up a chocolate bar, right? That's okay. But when I asked my mother, who is 74, and she's a great bubby, and she's a great mother, yeah. I said, do you recognize that you give us guilt trips, me and my 3 brothers? She's like, I never give guilt trips. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they never recognize it.
And I'm
just
like,
do it.
Are you like a stand-up comedian now? Like, what is up? Like,
yeah. Oh, no, I know that feeling.
They don't recognize it. That's the problem. The problem is, I did recognize it, and it's a terrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling.
It is a terrible feeling for both parties. I don't think it's a healthy thing.
I don't think so.
Okay, so we're coming to the close of the interview, and before I give you the shameless promotion, I just want to ask one, we call that the shameless promotion of the segment. One last question about, is it true that I read this about you, that you are a big fan of Margaret Atwood?
Yes, I'm a huge fan. And that you went
to a charity event and paid $7,000 to be named one of her characters?
Yes.
Which character? In what book or what series?
Oh my God, the Oryx and the Crank, I think it was called. And please, let's check on that, because it was a while ago.
The character was named Rebecca?
Rebecca Eckler. And I made it to the second book too, the follow-up book too. I didn't have to pay for that one.
How wonderful.
No, I am actually, she's one, I like her on a personal level. I like her on a professional level.
Yes,
she's incredible what she does.
You have a lot in common with her.
I have a portrait of her in my main floor washroom.
Oh,
like,
wow.
seriously.
Wow, so you really are a fan.
I am a fan, yes.
I like her stuff too, like The Handmaid's Tale, which is a very popular series now, so I don't know.
I know, so, it's kind of funny. Rebecca Eckler does not fit into a Margaret Atwood normal character name. But it was fun. A lot of people do it. Stephen King does it at auctions. Like, a lot of other authors do it, for charity.
It's just great that you have that. I don't think a lot of people
It went to a good cause.
That.
So I don't feel any guilt about that, no.
Okay, it's not about guilt. It's just, and it's interesting, actually. Okay, so this is the shameless promotion part. We're coming to the end. Please tell my audience how they can purchase your book, this book, or any other books. And anything else, where we can reach you and how we can get your books, and you can have a new book out. How are we gonna get?
Well, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to Amazon.com if you're in the States, Amazon.ca if you're in Canada. Just type in my name, and all my books will pop up. It's pretty easy. It is pretty easy.
What about the blog? Do you want to give us a URL for the blog in case people want to go? And I know you're done writing about parenthood, but they can still benefit from the information.
Absolutely. You know what? I wrote a lot for savvymom.ca, but also if you just want to, if you're bored one night and you want to scroll down my Facebook, I do post everything I write professionally on my Facebook.
We're about to close off. This has probably been one of the best interviews I've had in a long time. I very much enjoyed chatting with you and you sharing your information with us. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm pretty sure a lot of my female audience will greatly benefit from what you have to say and what you have to write.
You're a good interview. I enjoyed this. It was fun.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us as well. This is Janette Burke, your host, signing off for Janette TV. Please remember to like, comment, and share all our posts with the wonderful women and the smart men in your life. You will find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, Vimeo, YouTube, Instagram, you name it, we're there. Hashtag Janette TV. And until next time, continue to be fabulous.